guest today is County Commissioner, newly elected, Kionne McGhee. Welcome and thank you for being here. And I'm Michael Miller, and to my left is the world famous attorney, David Winker.
I'm glad to be here.
Activist and somebody that cares about the community. So, Commissioner, last time we saw you was probably in October, and you did it. All right, you really brought it home. So, congratulations to you on that.
Mike, let me say thank you. And Dave, it's always a pleasure seeing you, my brother.
Seeing you.
Listen, it was your voice, your community, your vision that actually helped get me over the finish line. You had some great followers out there who questioned me on some tough issues. I felt like we answered those issues in a way that made sense. And once we answered those questions in a way that made sense, the people understood exactly that what we were saying was spot on. And that's because of people like you. When we need great advocates on behalf of the people, you hold our feet to the fire, and you didn't let us wiggle out of any tough questions. And therefore, the people benefited, and they saw through everything and voted us in.
Well, I'm honored to hear that from you, and I'm quite flattered. A lot of that has to do with my brother Grant, who's always out there and doing the right thing and pushing all of us to do a better job. I was commenting this morning, if you're ever depressed, just hang around Grant for about 30 seconds and you're done. And
likewise for Kionne, I got to tell you something. He brings an energy. You're ready to walk through a wall, right? I mean,
and I saw you at one of the food giveaways, and before that, at some of the shootings. And we like to talk about the shootings. Maybe David is going to bring that up. Yeah. And you have a connection with people that is just unbelievable. When I've seen some of your shows, man, I am there with you, right? And the first time I saw him, and David, when he says, "I see you," and he's talking, and I'm going, what kind of stuff does he have that he's seeing all these people? I see you, then I realize he sees their name, all right, and their comments. And I'm going, this is great, because there I am. I'm sucked right into that. So, and I enjoy your enthusiasm, and you're really connecting spiritually. So, David,
well,
we have him here.
I got to tell you, I am dying to talk to you about transportation.
Gosh.
I want to hear, what. So let me talk about something we talked about offline, which was, God bless you.
Yes, sir.
This is an unprecedented challenge in government in my 50 years on this planet.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate your service. I appreciate you wanting to take this on. Tell me, where does transportation fit into South Dade's path forward?
It's everything, David. It is the economic development engine that this is the time where, if you really want to bring South Dade forward and not treat our citizens like second-class citizens, the transportation mode, the transportation era will dictate for us our future. Miami-Dade County has an opportunity to take us out of the dark ages and bring us up to par with the rest of the county. We've been sitting in the South in the dark based upon transportation since 1997. That's when the county first decided that they would give us a BRT. And it's a rapid transit, basically a bus system. That bus system has failed since 1997. They came back a few years later. Then they promised us that if we would simply tax ourselves at a half cent, they would give us a revolutionary style form of transportation. To this day, as we sit here, David, there's absolutely nothing going on in that busway. And now Miami-Dade County, in its wisdom, has decided that they will give money to a company that's actually been downgraded by Fitch and Moody's as it relates to their financials, to a CC, close to a D now. They decided to give them over $300 million to bring more buses with a canopy and tell the people in South Dade that that's all they have for us at this moment. When in fact, the rest of the county is getting either a monorail, metro rail, Bright Line, or other forms of train.
Just revolutionary, amazing forms of transport. Like in downtown, here's Bright Line. I mean, all this great things is happening. All these great things are happening.
Yes.
And South Dade, it's like they're almost begrudgingly giving you this second-rate bus system.
Yeah, and I agree with you. For years, the South Dade end of the county has been ignored repeatedly, and we understand that in wars, one of the ways you cut people off is by cut off the airplanes, the airports, the roads, all right, the food, the water, and after a while they starve, and then they give up. And you bring up a really good point. At the other end, all right, you've got all that stuff going on. So why is it that the people in the south end of the county, that's from Florida City and Homestead, Cutler Bay, and Palmetto Bay, and as you go farther north, there's less of that cutting off. So why has that occurred, and why has the South End been ignored for so long? Listen up, folks. Here it comes. All right, I'm waiting.
And let me be absolutely clear. They just, there are some people in this county who just don't give a damn about the folk down south. They see us as a second-class citizen. They see us as not being able to contribute to the overall makeup of Miami-Dade County. And this is not something that's a black or white issue. This is a quality of life issue. This is an economic development issue. Our incoming president has taken train for over 30 years to get back and forth to the Capitol. Everyone knows in every time, in every revolution, there has to be a focus on transportation. And buses are so detrimental to our environment that it's contradictory to everything we stand for here in Miami-Dade County. We sell to the world sunshine. We sell to the world the beaches. We sell to the world an environment that basically says this is heaven on earth. Why then should we shortchange the people who want to come here while at the same time subjecting the people who are already here to a lifestyle that's secondary to every other lifestyle that's going on in Miami-Dade County?
Mr. Winker?
It's interesting. I hear you. And you're so right on. And I was the lawyer that brought the try to bring down the half-penny sales tax, or at least the misuse of the half-penny sales tax. And we actually lost the case, but we won the case because we got the county to stop taking those half-penny sales tax funds and putting them toward operating costs, right? Yes. Which is really, it's interesting because it's like there was damage done, I think, to everybody because a tax was misrepresented, right? The county officials changed it. They started using it. They didn't give the people. But really, most of that was intended for your constituents. It was to extend it down there. So I hear you. It's frustrating. During that lawsuit, I was really trying to get the county to settle it up, and we ended up we ended up getting summary judgment out at the end. And one of the arguments of the county was, this is a moot point, Winker. We've already agreed not to do this anymore. So the judge dismissed it. But my question for you is, or my encouragement for you is, I would definitely look at, we always need to look at our history. I would look at the history of those funds and what they were used for during that time. Okay. Funds that I think everyone admits should have gone to that rail. And then the other thing that you say, it harkens back to something that ex-commissioner Xavier Suarez said. He would always focus on people stuck in cars. People stuck in buses, people trying to move around the county. Yeah. And when I hear your frustration, I think about, I'm not from your community, but one of my first thoughts is we need those people to be able to get to the jobs, to have opportunity. They need the transportation.
See, David, you get it. This is not so much a focus of, A community versus B community. This is all about equality of Miamians, right? This is where we talk about the economics of the day. This is where we talk about a stressing of our discretionary income. Because if you think about it, out of the South, in order to get to the North, sometimes we pay like $8, $12 in tolls. Now you compound that with having to take 3 and 4 buses just to get to downtown or to the beach to go work a job that's part-time or full-time, but you're only making minimum wage. When you look at it in the totality of the totality of the circumstances, you realize there is a complete war on the discretionary incomes of those of us who are located in the South Dade community. And it is not fair. I don't care what argument someone can make to say that this is the way it is. No, the argument shouldn't be this is the way it is. The argument should be, what can we do to bring about equality for the very Miamians who are here, who have built this place, who are paying taxes, and who love this great county.
So, and one of the things that we know that we must do, we must be able to build the county and infrastructure, build way before, all right, things are needed. You look at Walmart, how many times they've built so far out in the boonies, and you know what follows a couple of years later? Housing. And then the other stores, all right? And then people go to those places. I think a perfect example is the Walmart way out in 157th Avenue.
Yes.
In Kendall. Nobody objected to it. It goes out there. All of a sudden, there's red roofs all over the place. So what are you suggesting to occur there? And what would be the difference in if these buses were put there versus what you're suggesting.
Yeah,
and how long does that take?
Right. So one of the things the county failed to do was to engage the public, the private sector on the rail. You know, my philosophy is government should not be in the business of doing business. And when government is too big, it hurts the people the most, the poor people, the working class, those who are struggling every day to make ends meet. It has nothing to do with color, has nothing to do with, your gender. This is purely a question of right and wrong. My suggestion to the Mayor Cobble, is this: not to issue the notice to proceed. And the notice to proceed right now is simply to allow for the buses to go forward. There are hundreds of buses at our local compound here with the transit department. She can take those buses off that compound. She can increase the frequency uses of those buses that we currently have while we seek a public-private partnership with the private sector to come in and build rail for us. The argument is going to be that there's no money for it. Well, how can you explain there's no money for it when the people have already paid for it, but yet the folk in the north are actually getting the rail? And secondly, if the argument is that we're short of money, then why not simply do this? Get government out of the way, give it to the private sector, let the private sector bid it out, and let us at least have an opportunity to go through those bids. The mayor could issue a RFP today or tomorrow.
Years ago, when I just got married, I was talking to a gentleman. He was about 10 years older, and it was Don. I said, Don, you know, he said, Mike, when are you going to have some kids? I said, when I have enough money, I'm going to have some kids. And he said to me, you're never going to have enough money.
Never going to have enough money.
So just go do it.
Yeah.
So,
I like that.
So with the case of, you know, having this transportation, we know that sometimes in business you have to do things in advance, right? And you have to lay out that foundation,
yes.
And then would fill in. We know that the south end of the county has been neglected for years and
yes.
years and decades and decades. Go down and ask Scotus Wallace and the mayors down there in Homestead, and ask the people where we just cut them off, all right?
Yeah.
And we know that there was a coalition of some of the southern cities about a year ago, and they fought so much about this issue.
Yes,
right?
we did.
Now, we just were talking with one of the mayors down south, and he said to me, Michael, we want it to be perfect, but don't let perfect get in the way of good. Making direct conversation about using the buses instead of waiting for, you know, some rails. The question that I have for you is, if there was a question to get some federal funds, doesn't the federal government say, show us your need for that? And how would you do that?
Right. So the argument is going to be made that we have access to federal funds. There's no dispute about that. What we're saying is when you take federal dollars, you also take on the federal responsibilities. The argument was that we should have this BRT system and convert that system over to rail eventually.
That's been the conversation for several years.
That is one of the biggest bait and switch conversations we've ever seen. Currently, the way that the laws are made, the rules are made at the federal level. If you take federal dollars to build out BRT, you have to allow for that lifespan of that asset to carry forward. If you were to change out the asset before the lifespan has occurred, the federal government requires you to repay the monies that it gave you to build out that particular mode. Now, if that is true, then the argument of conversion is false, because now we do know the asset lifespan carries at least 12 years, and we do know they cannot begin to operate the BRT until at least 2024. So when you add those years together, it carries you past a decade. And because it carries you past a decade, that means we're going to be here in 2030, going into 2040, talking about converting the rail. Now, the conversion story, I debunked that. Because as we speak today, I removed the 35,000 required riders per cycle from the language. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. If Miami-Dade County can find the courage and we get the politicians out of the way and place the will of the people first, we can have a revolutionary style type of mode of transportation, and that is either light rail or rail for our people. Like I'll tell you today, and I'll say it again, and David, I'll say this loudly from the top of the mountain. If we don't get rail, they're going to hold us back another 20 years. And if you hold us back another 20 years with the way technology is going, chances are our children are going to suffer, our communities are going to suffer, and our land mass and it's the master plan will not be conducive to growth. Because the way it's set up now, the long range plan of the mode of when we're talking about setting up the restrictions on density here in the county. Up north, they can build hundreds of units per acre. But down south, you can only do about 15 per acre if you get that, or RM15, or you can only build one house per 5 acres if you get that. So if you're talking about artificially suppressing and giving out artificial information to our community, then that's where we need to start looking at how do we undo the bait and switch that we've seen year in and year out by previous administrations.
So David Winker, you've heard the old story about be bold or go home. All right. So Commissioner, I can hear you in front of the full commission making that argument, but how are you going to get that?
Yeah. What's the exact, how do we get from here to there?
Oh, it's easy. That's let me tell you. And the easy thing is move the politicians out of the way. There's a strong mayor in this county. There's only one. And there's a county commission. The county commission's job is to bring about policy that reflects the entire community. That's why we have 13. We come together and we look at this thing honestly, and we ask the people, like we've already done in the past, do you want rail or bus? Currently, the people are saying they want rail. Ask the county to release those reports. The people said they wanted rail. The county TPO, which is filled with elected officials, did an override of the people, took that to the federal government, and told the federal government that Miami-Dade County wanted bus.
So how does county government know that the people want rail?
They did so as part
this is where we're going to kick in right here.
So as part of the strategist, the SMART plan, we hired AECOM and other consultant firms to go out and speak with the people. They spoke with the people, and the people unequivocally told them rail is what they want in the South. The politicians then said, no, you're not getting rail. You're going to get buses. And the reason you're going to get the buses is because it's quicker. But what people
when quicker, you mean to get it?
Quicker to get it. But if you think about it, they could have done the same thing in less than 60 days. They could have easily taken the buses out of the compound and put them on a busway and ran them there frequently and used the arms and synchronized the lights and reached the same conclusion. But let me just say this really quickly, and I know you're going to like this, and I know your viewers are going to like this part. In Orlando, you heard this, Mike. In Orlando, Brightline brokered a deal to build 20 miles of rail from Orlando Airport to Disney World. They're able to get that done for less than $400 million. Yet government, because it's too big and they usually engage in wasteful spending, has tripled what Brightline is doing in Orlando and triple what it would cost to do it here to a tune of $1.3 billion.
That's a gravy train.
That is what you call a forever eating train.
Forever eating animal, like a machine. Because government, if we don't watch it, if we don't control it, will continuously expand. And that expansion doesn't cost everyone else the resources. It costs the people who need the resources to pay in more in order to make this expansion of government work. So when you expand government, you hurt the people. Commissioner, like it's interesting hearing you, because it's like we're sold. I don't want to speak for Michael, but I'm sold. And not to put the pressure on you, but selling this, to the commission and making this happen. It's very interesting to me to see this, because I think part of the problem is the history. I remember when they put in Metro Rail,
Yeah.
and they were like, it would have been cheaper to hire a limo to take every rider, right? And it may or may not have been true. You know, that's like an urban legend. But the point is here we are now. You can say whatever you want about the developments, like right on US 1, but we're in an affordable housing crisis. And now we're building in these transportation corridors these massive projects that are going to address that need on the Metro Rail. Right. So something that we put in 40 years ago or was planned 40 years ago, we're now going to see finally the fruition, right? We have a place to build. We have a solution. And it's, you know, it's I feel bad watching you fight that same fight again, right? It's like we talk about, like, what does government do well? Well, we can beat up government. What government is really bad at is this idea of you spending all your time doing something that's really going to benefit somebody a dozen years from now, man. So we're going to be watching you sell this, and I don't envy your task in the middle of a pandemic doing this.
Yeah, but the great thing about it is and as much as I am passionate about this issue, because I understand the people want in the community, but I can just say this to you: we live in the greatest county in all of state of Florida, man. I love this county and I love the people here. But what I do always remind my people of is that we must not only guard ourselves from one another, but we also must guard ourselves from an open encroachment by government when it comes to making sure that the resources that are needed to grow this great county are in place. And right now, the way it's set up is it's an unfair system. We're going to keep, talking about transportation. I really believe with these 4 new factors that were not there before, we can really revolutionize how we do this. We have a new administration in DC who is pro-rail. We have a new commission. They are pro-rail, right? We have individuals from the community who are ready to let their position be heard. They are pro-rail. But the one thing that we can take away from this pandemic that has taught us is that we can utilize our phones, our technology, our cameras, our computers to communicate with each other and do our own research without having to rely heavily upon the bait and switch tactics that are coming out of government in order to fool and scare people into doing something that's contradictory to their lifestyle. And
we have about 10 minutes left. I did want to get on to about the shootings that have been occurring in the South End. And also, when I heard you talk about there needs to be some coordination, I think some of the mayors on the South End cities, I suspect they're not all for this. I think they're looking for something that's a little bit less time to get there. So maybe they need a phone call or two, mayors, wherever you are. All right. So hopefully this time people don't have to speak in unison, and people can have the conversation, right? But it needs to be certainly, thought out and a vibrant and exhaustive debate and conversation about how to make things happen. And I do want to point out that we have glass here, and people take the temperature. Yes, and over here with David Winker. So in the last few months, there have been several, more than several, probably, but I had 4 or 5 shootings, mostly on a lot of young people.
Right.
What are we going to do? Well,
we can't. One thing we do know what we can't do is keep trying the same old thing that we've tried in the past. I think this is an opportunity where you're going to see me, especially as a former prosecutor, and also somebody who is who lost family members to gun violence in the same community where I represent. You're going to see us partner up with our law enforcement community. We're going to partner up with our clergy. We're partnering up with organizations. And what we're doing is we're coming up with our task, and that is to make sure opportunities are available for these young men and women down in the South Dade district.
So I understand that lots of times these are gangs. Do I have is that correct? That when one gang members get shot, the gangs retaliate, go to another area. Have you heard that and seen
that? So that makes up a very small percentage of what's happening. I can tell you what's happening though, from the ground. And from the ground, let me tell you what's happening. It's the county has a policy in place that individuals who live in public housing in the north, they relocated those individuals to the south. And part of the problem is they relocated these individuals to the South, and there was a different approach as it relates to community, culture, and neighborhoods. That in and of itself created what some may describe as turf wars. Right? And the turf wars are not the ones we're talking about traditionally, where gangs line up on one side and other gangs line up on the other side. We're talking about misunderstandings due to the reality of not being able to truly appreciate each other's differences sometimes. And that sometimes gets out of hand. And when that gets out of hand, our result is gun violence. One of the things I told many of my fellow colleagues and many of the folks in the Tallahassee area, and we talk about this often, is that when you don't have exposure, these children are not exposed to different lifestyles and things and positive things. They revert to things that they see on television. And that's why I fight so hard for transportation, because transportation is a way that these kids can board a train and take it all the way up to Palm Beach to see other lifestyles. And you know, and I know, the only reason why any of us in this room made it to where we are today is because we were exposed to something early on, and it piqued our curiosity. And when it piqued our curiosity, it told us something that we can do better than where we are. And unfortunately, some of our kids in our community, when they turn on the television, they see this, they turn on the internet, they see that. And so when they're not able to move to different locations to expose themselves to better living, it creates what I call that quagmire of defeat.
And before I get on to David, I was at a hospital a couple of years ago, and there had been a shooting or stabbing out in the field. And when they brought the patients in, they put the two warring sides on the same floor.
Ooh.
And they didn't realize it until the families and the gang members started having a little conversation in the hallways. So there was the police. They had the police were there keeping them separate. So we understand about turfs. So Mr. Winker, you've been involved in politics, for a long time. What are some things you'd like to, Commissioner Newland?
Well, I'd like to follow up on, that issue is, like, to me, it's so much of the economic opportunity. I think you did a great job of saying about doing it. And one of the things that I always tell people is, like, I was blessed. I always had the credentials, but I never got a job except through affinity, right? Through meeting people, through networking. Like, it's like, and to me, this transportation is part of that, of having these mix of kids. I do a high school football column. I'm very passionate about high school football because it's a center of excellence in our community. We do high school football at a higher level than anyone in the country. We produce more Division I athletes, more NFL athletes, and I'm fascinated by what's happening. And it's interesting because when you do that, you see what you're talking about. The kid at Norland, the kid at Northwestern, the kid at Central has a very different experience within the same county as the kid at Homestead, as the kid at Southbridge. Those are very different cultures. Even me as an outsider, I can see it. And I think that, what you said about that, transportation as begetting violence is an interesting way to think of it. And again, I think that as you sell has a bad word, but we're all salesmen or whatever, especially politicians. As you sell that, I think that, it's like transportation touches on so many levels. Right. And one thing I hope that you can tap into that I think is one of your challenges is we have really, really evolved advocates or evolved advocacy of transportation in downtown, in Miami Beach, right? These people are very good at it. They don't begin because of the isolation. They probably couldn't even begin to talk about the issues in the South. And I think that, you tackling this from that perspective is very refreshing. And I hope more people can hear your message of, I'm definitely of that thought of government doesn't do a lot of things well. And your idea of getting government out of the way, is really, something. So again, I'll go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
So one of the things I've learned, and my rabbi asked me, Rabbi Harlig, I finally said it.
Yes. So what does the rabbi say?
All right. He said to me, Michael, so what did you get out of 2020? And what did your COVID experience teach you? what it taught me is the more we do this, the more that I can meet new people and have a 20-minute conversation face to face, understand there are differences, but we all sort of blend in there together. We can share that commonality of success. And so I've learned through, and we have a show called Race to the Top of People of Color. Right? It's unbelievable what I've learned about people of all different colors before I would hang out with people in my orbit, whatever that happened to be. All right. So I'm really blessed to have learned a lot about each other, and I would suggest that your approach is right. We need to meet together and find the great equalizer, whether it's on a football field or baseball or soccer field. And I know that's one of the great things about Grant, who's been coaching for years, people of all ages, and all genders and nationalities and color and abilities. So I know you have the ability to get this done and to speak your piece and your truth. And we'd love to help you bring this to the surface. And so we're going to invite him now to do a show every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right from here.
In the center
That's right.
of news and information. And it's funny.
1 minute left.
It's funny you say that, Kionne, because I would, Commissioner, I would really encourage you also to tell us how we can help. There's a lot of people that want to advocate, and it kind of goes to my thing of, these other advocates. We're all out here. We want to push this. How can we help? So please plug us in. Right. Let us know what we can do to help you on this journey.
Okay, right now we have 2 minutes left. There's some young person sitting out there that wants to be a politician, right?
Don't do it, right, Kionne?
Which camera? Which camera? Which camera? Right there. Talk to him right now, or her.
Listen, I'll just say this, Mike and Grant and Dave, thank you all, man, and I really appreciate it. And I see my colleague Robert Asensio here also. Let me just say this to you all. Find an issue that's bigger than you, and you take on that issue. That issue may not have a personal bearing on how you feel and what you do in life or have some sort of past effect on you. But when you find an issue that's bigger than you and you take on that issue, you'll be amazed how many people you help out. Life is really all about two things, time and memories. Nothing else you can take with you, nothing else you can hold on to. Eventually, they're all going to fade. But the two things that are never going to fade are the time and the memories. And I simply don't want the people in my district, especially in the South Dade community or anywhere else, to look back at their life and say, man, if I had been exposed to North Carolina, New York, Broward, and regret those moments. We should have happy moments. So find an issue that's bigger than you, take on that issue and make it yours. Secondly, don't base help on color, social class, economics, or simply gender or ethnicity. Focus your attention on those who want to move the needle forward. Yes, this is a huge team, but understand that each one of us, we have a different task, and that different task will always benefit the whole. That's all I have to say, and I just want to say thank you all.
My pleasure. And again,
thank you, Commissioner.
Our guest today is County Commissioner Kionne McGhee and David Winker, and who has a regular show here called the David Winker Show. I got it right. And he's a real sports fan. And Tommy over there is doing a sports show.
Yeah, thanks,
today.
Producer Tommy.
Was that today? Was that today?
That's today.
That's today. So
we didn't have time. We didn't have time to get Commissioner's NFL picks, but we'll do that next week.
About a 75% win rate the other day.
I'm not good at football picks. I've already went on hey, Mike, you're going to love this. I've gone on the record to say that the Miami Dolphins are going to the Super Bowl this year, and we were going to win it. And a few of my colleagues on social media and my friends, I owe a few wing dinners, wild wings.
All right. Folks, thanks for joining us again. This is Live with Miami's Community News. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.